I'm allowing myself to be freer in the podcast.
The biopsy comes back and sure enough, I've got cancer, but not only cancer, it's spread. Do I want to live?
What's your biggest fear?
There is no spoon. Even in one lifetime, we have many lifetimes.
We go through all these iterations.
He just compared the domes to giant.
Cheers.
Father Sky, Mother Earth. I had to have something. That's where I had to go. Well, I remember an SCI class and people asked me, so Alan, how did you end up here? And I remember my answer, it was from playing World of Warcraft. And they went, what? And that was the ultimate tipping point that brought me to
Fairfield, Iowa, the cornfields of Iowa.
Was this virtual reality game where, I did a visitor's weekend and all that, but I hadn't decided to go to school until I came back and was playing this and said, okay, I'm not going to play video games anymore. I'm going to play one last round. My roommate, I said, I'm giving you all my virtual stuff from the game. So I go on one last little adventure, right? Just because at least that much I'm going to do. And, you get these little treasures in games, right? You finish the quest or whatever, and you get a treasure. So I get the treasure chest. I'm sitting there. My roommate's right on the table next to me, and he knows this whole.
You're in World of Warcraft. You're going to play one last game. And I want to hear the rest of the story. I'm curious.
And so then this treasure drops. I open the box and I look over at my roommate and I go, dude, you got to see this. I said, because I've never been on this little journey. This is a new game and everything else. He comes over, he looks and he goes, and I look at him, I go, yeah, Maharishi boots of walking. I said, I think I'm going to Fairfield. And he goes, yep. It was the trippiest thing in the world.
No way.
That was it. It was like, I show up and that very summer, and my mom's like, now, Alan, you're going to finish school this time. You're old. You've got to finish school this time. I said, I'm going to finish school. She says, no, go gallivanting all over Europe or around the world. You're going to finish school. And then what happens? Very first class is like, oh, by the way, we're flying you all to blow drop.
Can you believe that? I remember us being in the auditorium, first day of class. It was physics with John Hagelin. I think he said, like, on a lunch break, if you could go home, get your passport, because we're flying you all to blow drop. And we're like, what? And I come back after lunch, and if the auditorium wasn't packed, it was packed then, and people were trying to get in to try and get that free ticket. What an incredible experience. And that's pretty much, we met each other at MIU.
Yeah, or MUM at that time, right? Which was awesome. I love the way Maharishi plays with words. Obviously, mum, silence. Am I you? Getting to say, am I you? So that namaste kind of reflection.
What was your biggest takeaway from being at Maharishi's ashram? I'm curious. And that was while he was still alive too, right? He was video conferencing us.
Yeah. The serendipity, number one. Here you are in this community, and all of a sudden you think of something, and it does happen. And that reinforces that sort of magic, that sort of connection that we have in the universe and the world, that people don't, forget to see or notice. Isn't that what a vision quest is all about too? You go up on top of the mountain, you're there with God, you're there with spirit, you're there with yourself, and you come to connect to a vision that you're then to bring down the mountain and share with the people. That's going to help the community and help them grow.
You embark on it, and the beautiful thing is you don't really know where it's going to lead, right? That's part of the adventure. Just like you were questing in World of Warcraft and you had no idea what the treasure was going to be.
I love this analogy that Nick Santonastasso, a friend of mine, shared with me the other day of just having the lantern in the forest, right? And that lantern illuminates those steps and in front of you that light up the path. But you don't necessarily see what's going to end up happening there. You may have a sense of that there's a mountain that you're going to reach the top of or something, or that you're going to get out of this. But But really, it's one step at a time, and and that illumination is there. But you're not focusing on the darkness; you're focusing on the light, and taking those steps and showing up. So yeah, there's an uncomfortable action at first. That first step, obviously, into that little bit of the unknown.
I like this analogy of a lantern because it's like it's all you got, right? Like what is that lantern? What is the guiding light? Is that values? What is it?
It could be a combination of things. It's not only something that's internal, but I think it's also can be external as well.
What's your biggest fear?
What's the biggest fear?
Your biggest fear, any fear.
My biggest fear. My biggest fear. Oh my gosh. Now that's a Tony Robbins kind of question there too. That's a big one. It's a necessary thing when you're running away from saber-toothed tigers, as he would put it, from millions of years ago. It's something that's hardwired in us. So we naturally go to that fight and flight place. I'm gonna steal this because it really does go right to the root of it. Comes full circle. Fear of loss of love, of connection. I mean, ultimately, every time I dig deeper to it, it's what do I love? What do I care about? Life. Well, that would bring us right full circle to the health issues, right? So the greatest fear that I faced recently was dying. And what did that mean? What was I afraid of? And is it death that I'm afraid of? No, but afraid of not being able to connect and reconnect with yourself, with others, with friends, with people, sharing stories, helping others. But there's courage, which embodies fear. It takes it and goes, ooh, now I'm going to take that uncomfortable action. I'm going to take that risk and I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to face that fear. That's courage. Doesn't mean that the fear isn't there. It means that you're facing it and you're moving through it, or you're going through that valley. You're taking that path through the darkness with your lantern, or even without the lantern, knowing, well, there's a lantern. If it's not external, it's internal, or it's both, right? You might have that magic hero quest. You might, the hero's journey, you may have already have the sword, the Excalibur or whatever that's going to guide you through there, or the golden fleece or something, or Aladdin's lamp. What wishes are you going to make, though? That's the question. See.
There's a lot of questions. That was great. I think you said some really awesome things. One, I really liked what you said about courage, and how it's not like an absence of fear. It's what you're doing with the fear. And then also, not only the diagnosis that you had of cancer, but the necessary steps that you took in beating it.
So a recap really quick. The last, I would say 8 to 10 years was helping my mom who ended up developing Alzheimer's. And this is sort of a broad thing. There's a very specific incident that led to realizing that she was exhibiting the symptoms of Alzheimer's, which does run in our family. And having been a caregiver before I was even at MIU, that was sort of always my go-to job. I'd always had a calling to do that. People would call on me to help them. So my whole focus went on caregiving for my mom, in overcoming her fears around what she witnessed with her brothers and sisters and her father who had dementia. So for example, we learned TM. Which was actually a beautiful thing. It was so amazing. What was great about it, I'm going to tie in a TM story. I can't believe I'm tying in a TM story. Okay, here we go. Here's the TM story. I remember she learned it and she goes, I don't know, this meditation thing. This isn't working at all. I'm not peaceful. I'm not happy. I'm not blissful. Just all thoughts. But then later that week, she's driving. She's, this is early stages. So she was still driving. I called her and I go, Mom, where are you? You're not home yet. She goes, oh, well, I got a flat tire. Okay, Mom, you're at the shop. There's a new tire. And she goes, oh yeah, very pleasant young man here. Da, 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 da. And I went, is this my mom? Because my mom would be freaking out. First, that she had a flat tire on the road.
Sure.
Two, that she's having to go get it replaced. What the cost is it going to be right? She would be a mess. And I go, oh, Mom, but wait a minute. I remember how this would upset you in the past. You remember how, and she all of a sudden paused. Yeah, I guess it would have. Doesn't bother me right now. I says, that's what the meditation's all about. It's not the moment where you're meditating. It's how it impacts the rest of your life. And she's like, oh, and this sort of light went on right there. And what's fascinating is later, as the disease progressed, she eventually forgot that she'd learned meditation. And that was actually okay, because then what we would do is go, oh, Mom, we're going to go learn meditation. And she'd go, oh, that sounds wonderful. So she'd go learn meditation again. She learned TM, I don't know how many times, 3 to 5 independent times. And she'd come out and she'd go, that is the most wonderful experience. And this lit her up. She was not a happy person. Not in the sense that she didn't have moments of happiness or moments of expression of this sort of bliss kind of thing. But it's just that she had taken on all kinds of stress and worry and concern, having been a school nurse, always worrying about the other person. She was a caregiver. Our whole family were caregivers, really. And so to bring it full circle to the bigger question is, I had been caregiving for her, for my stepfather, our relationship in the extended family, and I didn't take care of myself. I forgot to take care of myself. And some things backslid. So 5 years into doing that, and I had a little window where COVID had happened. And then there was a little window where COVID was okay to travel now. And I said, I need to go just do my annual checkups. And I'm up there in Washington at the doctors, or up here in Washington. She said, everything's fine, except that you've got sort of this enlarged prostate thing. We got to do a test. And it's really nothing to be worried about unless your family has a history of cancer. And I went, oh, okay. And so, of course, first test came back positive. Second test came back positive. Scheduled the biopsy. And I went, okay, today we have this whole genetic thing that we can explore, right? Back then, even 5-10 years ago, that was not something that you had available to you. And insurance companies were for sure not going to be, doing these kinds of very expensive tests.
I mean, well, they're not in the business of prevention. Let's just put it that way.
They are more now. They're realizing the cost benefit ratio of preventing something before it happens. But yes, they're absolutely not in the business of that. Yeah. So the biopsy comes back, and sure enough, I've got cancer, but not only cancer, it's spread throughout the entire area. And this is where it connects to my father. And my father, had started with prostate cancer, and within 1.5 years, he died. Wow. And that's just not typical. And at the same age I was, and that's more than a coincidence in the genetic field.
I'm just thinking about what it must have been like to be in that situation where you get the news that you have cancer, and then your mother with Alzheimer's. Like Maharishi says, like there's that wonderful feeling of like mother's at home, or she'll help or take care of it. And did you feel like maybe you were alone in that diagnosis at all?
In a way that I had to adopt a greater father and a greater mother. I had to choose to have, say from a native elder standpoint, Father Sky, Mother Earth. I had to have something. That's where I had to go. I had to go there. I had to go to something bigger than myself to take care of me, and in taking care of my mom. And that was a huge, compelling, driving force to why I was being so proactive, even though I didn't realize why I was being so proactive in addressing this. Because one, who was going to take care of my mom, if not me? Who was going to help her if I'm not there? I have to fix this. This has to shift. And two, all of the guilt, and I wouldn't say, guilt. I don't know if it would be so much guilt. I don't know if guilt's the right word. Hindsight, regret, maybe. No, not regret. Maybe that's too big too. But hindsight in going, gosh, I wish. It's one of those wish type things where I wish I had known what I know now to help my father. Because that would have maybe been able to help him, right? And he wouldn't have died. So there, to change his lifestyle, to change to have the healthy diet things to really prevent the cancer from spreading and triggering all these other things, to have all of those tools that I knew now that I was using to help my mom. And then the biggest realization, and I didn't have words for it in that moment. Later I did, through doing a lot of self-help and self-growth, was recognizing what I was in relationship to my parents, that I was their gift. I was looking through their eyes at my own birth and what it meant to them to experience having me as a child and how much love they had for me. And to honor that for them in taking care of my life as the greatest gift that I could give to them is honoring the life that they gave me and being here. So I got very active on this journey, and I went to the geneticist and I said, you do this, so I got all that lined up. And then there was a gap because all these tests had to happen, and that did take time. And in that time, Father, yep, God, Great Spirit, however, whatever word you want to put to that, what do I do now? And that's where that magic moment happened, where all of a sudden my sister, who had turned on all my notifications on social media because I'd never done social media before, then this ding happened when I went, okay, what do I do? Ding. And I'm like, where's this dinging happen? And I'm looking through, and there was this email, and the email said, New World, New You Challenge. And that's the first part I saw. And I went, well, yeah, it looks like I need a new me. And it says Tony Robbins. And I go, Tony Robbins, really? And that's what started this whole journey.
You're saying it really tipped the scale?
Oh gosh, yeah. So I dove into that. And that was the gap between that moment and all these tests coming in, and then doing surgery and so forth. So that completely turned the tables on how we view the world. What is our priorities? What does society tell us our priorities are? And what is our health priority? Where does this become a priority? So yeah, I took up my meditation again in a very active way. I took up my walk and talks and getting out in nature, and I also adopted things that were Western as well. I looked at the things that are Western medicine and said, what works? What is really something that works? And so I really dug in deeper into addressing my asthma, addressing my breathing issues. I ended up between that and getting cancer surgery, getting sinus surgery of all things. And suddenly I'm breathing for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Oxygen. Yeah. Oxygen's so important, right? Important in killing cancer too. So I did that, and then I did the cancer surgery, and then my brother and sister had an opportunity to step up, and because they cared about me, they stepped up and took care of my mom. And that became a blessing in disguise because it created an opportunity for them to heal their relationship with her. Even though she was later in the process of the Alzheimer's disease, a lot of her stress had gone away. A lot of those memories and negative things that were her go-tos were the things that she forgot. And the meditation and the positive things and simply being present in the moment, it was very childlike. And suddenly my mom was open to being hugged and held and giving hugs and being held. That was not our mom.
Wow.
From the past.
It seems like maybe one of the biggest fears is that, when memory is lost, maybe the history and experiences are lost with it. But of course, that's not, I don't suspect that's actually true, but
I think it's the lantern that you have. I think it's the picking up, it's those tools that you're going to take with you while you're conscious on that journey with the soul. Other people with that disease, where their focus was all on the negative and their family environment was all negative, they just manifested and magnified the negative. They would be combative. They would be yelling and slamming doors and shouting. And I'm not saying my mom didn't have that moment. She did. There was a little brief moment, but it was very brief and was diminished. And it shifted into something healthier and more positive. It's very important. You don't need 10,000 lifetimes if you can create or gain an awareness that even in one lifetime, we have many lifetimes. We have many new identities. We have new roles. We are shifting and changing all the time. The Luke that I went to school with is not the Luke now. And I remember the challenges that we had. Your story in and of itself is like, I was reflecting on that going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I definitely learned a couple of hard lessons there when I was a freshman in college, but thank God, I got through them and grew and developed as a person. I'm stronger, more resilient. I'm allowing myself to be freer in the podcast. And there's been a couple of episodes, admittedly, where I got lost in the rabbit hole of editing them. I don't know, like I've spent days editing single episodes in ways that were probably just overly critical and judgmental of how I was showing up in the world. But one thing I really get a kick out of is surrendering more to like who I am, that my ideas and thoughts and feelings, whatever that comes up in these episodes is actually valid. These are interesting subjects. A couple of questions. One is, if you could go back in time, as you mentioned previously, what were the biggest nuggets of gold that you've gleaned from this experience that you wish you could have told your earlier self?
Well, like I said, if I could go back to an earlier self that could then help my father or help others, that's really key. To speak out, you gotta talk, you gotta communicate. And something that I took to heart at school that's probably why people remember me the most. It's like, oh my gosh, Alan's standing up again. What is he going to say? Holy smokes! He just compared the domes to giant. But
I don't know if that's an original thought, but.
No, it's not an original thought, but somebody stood up and actually said it in front of everybody. And that's
that took kahunas. Yeah.
So that's what we have to do for everything. And that's what I would probably tell the earlier self, because by not doing that, by not stepping up, who has been harmed, who has been hurt, who hasn't gained by not voicing, by not telling or sharing our stories. Everybody's got a story and every one of them are important. I'm excited. I know there's all the negative and there's a lot of darkness and people can focus on that.
Yeah.
But with cancer, you don't do that. That's the very first thing you do is you turn off the news, you focus on the positive, you're optimistic. So how do you flip that optimism when you've got all these global things going on? And I'm like, no, this is so cool, because before we just never knew that it was happening. It's not that it wasn't happening. It was happening. We just didn't know it. And right now, like we have all these quote unquote nations. You hear the Ukraine or the Soviet Union or Russia or America or this. Well, what's the next thing? What if nations weren't there? What if you're another kind of consciousness, another something beyond that? What's the next? It's a new word. It's going to be a new thing in this little terrarium of Earth that we're in, right?
Well said.
So I think this is, to me, that's just exciting because it allows us to explore outward. Yes. So we've got our billionaires that are looking to the stars, but we also have the Jacques Cousteaus that are looking deep into the ocean and looking small to the DNA, right? Exploring the inner space, both in an outward experience, but then we have this exploration into consciousness.
On the one hand, you touched on this earlier about you ended up getting the cell phone, right? And your sister helped kind of plug you back into the social media thing. And it's like, we've never been more connected and disconnected at the same time.
That's kind of what we're in it, right? So because we're in it, we're not seeing, we'd have to step out. And I think we do. We have to step out as a soul. And so as we recognize this soul level of self, this bigger self that can then look and reflect on us in this physical form, then all of a sudden we get this experience. To me, that's what video games are doing, right? Because people are so locked into not having, they can't grok this soul to the human being. But what did we do? We created a tool in order to see that very process, to have a greater reflection, because we play a character in a game. Free Guy, the movie, right? Ryan Reynolds, so you're in that. So you see that, and we're playing a character in a game that then reflects on me playing the character in the game. So that makes it easy for our brain to be able to go, oh, couldn't that easily just be the same thing now? The soul, kind of cool. Gives us this reflective,
super cool.
There is no spoon.
Oh.
So of course I got a little there is no spoon moment. So you've reminded me of that. And that's why I rushed over there. So what are we? We're in this sort of little Neo matrix, unplugging, plugging it back in, but unplugging kind of a thing, right? And I don't know if you've seen the film Social Dilemma, of course. So that really,
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and of course who did we have as a guest speaker? At least back when I was there, we had the guy who did Zeitgeist came and was a guest speaker on campus. To me, I'm looking now at sort of like, well, I'll have a tech fast, right? 7 days without technology. Or like Happy Jack, or Jack, who's the head of the yoga community, what he's doing is he took everything off of his phone so that where his technology is like, here, we schedule a time. I'm going to check Facebook or I'll check Messenger, but it's scheduled. It's in a unique space. It's a designated time I'm going to spend to then check messages and this, but I'm not going to carry it around with me. So it's influencing me every time it dings. If you're connected to a bigger sense, then it doesn't matter, right? Because I'm like going, wow, if I hadn't had that on, this opportunity wouldn't have connected. But my connection is to something bigger than myself. Then this and this all becomes vehicles.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's all just tools, and it's how you use the tools, I suppose.
And it's the awareness that they're tools. Because then all of a sudden, what was it Social Dilemma pointed out, is the tool using you or you using the tool, right? And that's the distinction. And that's the same thing with everything, right? Medicine. And people can go down the rabbit hole, well, big pharma's this or Western's this. Well, when I walked into that doctor's office, they serve me. They're my doctors, meaning I own this relationship here. I'm in charge of this relationship here. So I'm going to direct this relationship. This is what I need, what I want. And if you're not able to provide it, I will go somewhere else that can. That's taking charge of your health and your journey. And that's so important. And you have to ask the ultimate question. Do I want to live? Why what am I living for? What do I want to do? What am I, because a lot of times that's the big problem. That's why, like Chris Wark was pointing out, he said, he gave the analogy of walking down to the beach, and he walks down to the beach and it's at sunset. It's beautiful, beautiful beach, sandy beach. And he notices there's some trash on the beach. And he said, there's myself and other individuals, they'll go down there and go, gosh, this is a beautiful beach in sunset. There's some trash, and goes and picks up the trash, throws it away, puts it, right? And enjoys this wonderful beach. The other person might go down to that beach and they'll see that trash, and they won't see the beautiful beach at that point. They'll see the trash and they'll go, what a dirty beach. This is a horrible place. I'm going to leave. And they don't even bother picking up the trash. And they might be doing, in the cancer journey, they might both be having the same doctors. They might be doing the same lifestyle changes. They might be, taking the same vitamins and doing the same regimen. But this one over here that notices the beautiful beach, that takes that action, they're the ones that survive. Even though this one over here is doing the exact same thing. And what's that distinction is their focus, their attention on what it is to be alive. That comes down to it, and what their purpose is, if they have a goal, if they have a compelling future. So for me, that compelling future was being able to help other people. It's huge, because I know what happened when I didn't speak up. Being an advocate and caregiver for others, I didn't challenge the family when the person I was caring for said, I want to live, Alan. And I didn't step up and get in the face of some other individuals and say, hey, this person wants to live. We're going to do things this way. Well, no, if he should just enjoy the last days of his life, and he should just have, party on, and I'm like, that's not what he wants. Now he's still going to do yes. He's going to say yes to you. And this is where I needed to step in and say this, and I'm practicing right now with you. I would need to say, this person wants this. and I'm going to be there as his advocate. Come into the room. Now, you guys talk. My friend here, I'm with you. We need to share this, what you want and your desires with the rest of the people, your family, and who's going to be around you, so that they know and understand what your desire is, because they need to hear it. So these are these kinds of things that I began to realize, things where that is the focus purely. Hey, what was your experience with Alzheimer's? What were some of the steps that helped your mom go from what was an advanced stage of Alzheimer's back down to mild cognitive impairment?
Well, what was that?
There were a lot of things. I mean, we changed diet. We changed so the diet, nutrition, combined with the exercise, combined with the meditation, combined with people who were loving, caring, and gave her hugs and showered her with that kind of support and community. So number one simple thing for diet, nutrition, especially with elderly, hydration. You got to drink water. And if you can't drink water, because a lot of times people don't like to drink water when they get older. They don't feel the thirst. They don't have that desire. I'm a big proponent of Jell-O. I hate to say it. If you need to step off of the vegan wagon for a moment to do it, but there are ways to do vegan Jell-O. It's good, but that gives you hydration. You can add in some of the juices and things that are not super sugary, so no sugar, but give enough sweetness and flavor so that you can get vitamin C. And it's a great source of protein, but the key is hydration, because you want to be drinking up to 1 gallon of water a day.
It's a lot of water. I know.
It's a lot of water.
So, I know for myself, I do not drink enough water, and I'm trying to get more on the cheers.
There we go. Cheers. Yeah. Yes. So having water, there's your nutrition thing. Exercise. So you get up and walk. Holding my mom's hand, and walking just even around the living room several times, or walking around the house several times. But if you can get outside, all the better. That was what walk and talk was all about. See, there are some things that are no longer in place that really ought to be in place. They really ought to be in place, even if it's in the classroom and you get up out of the desk and you go, guys, we're going to talk about these. We're going to have these subjects and talk while we're walking, even if it's around the classroom. Get out from behind the desk. Huge. So that walking. So now you got hydration, healthy food, you're vegetarian. Veggies is the number one. It's the one thing that both vegans and the paleo agree on. They just don't agree on where the source of protein is, but everything on the base of that pyramid should be vegetables. I mean, that's the number one thing. Veggies. You've got that. Then you've got the exercise, the cardio. And there are little cheats in there too, by the way. The latest information on saunas, for example, infrared saunas, Finnish saunas that are at 173 degrees or above. Those, if you're in there for 19 minutes, that's the equivalent of doing 30 minutes of aerobics. So say you've got that weight issue, say you've got some injury or something that's not allowing you to get that exercise, get yourself to a spa. Isn't that cool? I get to have a spa day and it's on my health. I got a prescription for it. Isn't that's ultimate. But yeah, something that activates that, gets that exercise going. Then the third thing is meditation of some form that's allowing you to get to a place where you're unstressing. Now, yeah, I'm a big proponent of I've done a lot of the different ones. I mean, I've got my stepfamily's Buddhist. They do the chanting. So there's the Zen, sort of the Buddhist traditions with the chanting. In the native cultures, a lot of them have adopted doing prayer ties, which is kind of like doing rosary beads for, Catholic or Christian, you've got those. Or in Tibetan Buddhism, different Buddhism, they'll have the beads and you'll move the beads around, so it's a very focus based. Or it might be a sound base or a mantra, but it's focus on the mantra rather than releasing the mantra. Okay. I bring up TM again because this last year during the cancer journey, or with my mom more, I was stuck at home and I revisited some of the games back then. And one of those games, WoW, got revisited they re-put it out, the original version. So a whole lot of us old guys revisited a game. Two of those people in there, one was a pharmacist, one was part of the CDC. So they really helped me be safe during COVID, knowing what my health background was. And then the third person was a neurotrauma specialist at UCLA, who, when I mentioned that I had learned TM, he goes, "Oh my gosh, that's the one meditation that is working with all our trauma injury patients. That has the greatest impact on their brain recovery and healing of all of them." So that was kind of cool. And that was just this last year.
Cool. Yeah.
And then I guess the fourth component that sort of brings all those together is this family or support or community support in a healthy way. The people that you're in proximity with that are around you. And guess what? There's an entire study that's out there that shows that when you have all of those things together, something else happens. There's a synergy when you have all of those things in place that doesn't happen when any one of them is missing.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So my life is about that. I love that when people ask what I enjoy the most, what is my number one thing? I love connection. I love love and connection. And I love immersion. I love being in environments where that kind of thing happens. And so now I chase that down. If I see it occurring, I'm there. So if there are events like the things that Tony Robbins facilitates, where he brings all of these other experts together in one place for things to happen, then I'm there. I love it because it's a proactive space where we're all learning, where we're all acknowledging each other and participating and growing. And it's just, yeah.
I have yet to actually do one of his weekends. I almost did one of the virtual events. I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe at some point I'll just push myself through the door and do it. Take the Tony Robbins plunge.
Yeah. I guess for me, again, he's for activity what Fairfield tended to lean towards the dive into silence. And it's funny because I laugh when I think about the meditation. And a lot of times people are like, they're like, well, why isn't there more activity here? Why haven't things shifted in the world? And I said, well, they have. You just need to go, why don't you come to one of these events and you'll see what you actually helped manifest in a way by being, creating this space for people to dive in. So there is that. Of course, we have to get rid of our limiting beliefs that there's any one person or name. Yes, there's the name Tony Robbins. It's less about him, and he would say that same thing. It parallels. That's why he did that whole documentary, I Am Not Your Guru. It's no different than Maharishi saying, hey, Jai Guru Dev, it's not me, right? It's all to the person who taught me. Or somebody like a Master Ko who explores a lot of the meditation, and his teacher, everything's to his teacher. It's not him. Yes, he's sharing this knowledge. Tony's bringing people together, sharing the knowledge. Maharishi's sharing this knowledge. So anyway, I love bridging the gap. I love to see these communities come together, and we can keep talking for a long time.
Is there any other things we want to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, ask the questions. Asking questions is big. That may be a whole nother topic, and yet in one sense, that was the magic of the cancer journey that I was on, is what did I do? I looked up, I go, God, Great Spirit, what do I do next? Being open to asking that question and being open to whatever answer may come and exploring that. Ask us that question here in this little podcast. If somebody's viewing this and actually got through all of this to this point where you're asking a question, type a little question in chat, send it to Luke here.
Honestly, Alan, I really commend you on your journey and your willingness to share, what your experience was like and the things that supported you through it. But I just think you're a terrific person. And I really support you in your mission of helping others. I think I heard you say that's a beautiful mission, that you come from a family of caregivers. I can't think of anything more commendable, really. It's just terrific. I think you're a great person.
Well, you are too. My gosh, Luke, that's why we're connecting here. This is so awesome because that's it. Like what you're doing right now, the fact that you're doing this, you've got a podcast happening. It's not in here. Because if you're in here, if you're in your head, you're dead. So there is something huge about creating this environment for us to grow in that gets us out from behind those desks. Stand up like we have to do. Stand up, get up out of our desks, right? We got to ask the question. That's what it's about, man.
Love it. Love your energy and hope to do it again soon. Thanks so much for listening, you guys.
Oh, thank you, guys. Woo!